What's going on, ladies and gentlemen? Welcome back to the Fringe. The election, I'm hoping at this point, is going to be a walk in the park for Pierre Poilievre, as Mark Carney is finished. He's done. Any point he had going into the election to essentially call out Donald Trump, to call out the Donald, it's over, it's done, it's finished, okay? They're not going to do it anymore. I know people get fed up with my Trump impression, but there's so many people who say, keep doing it, Fringe. We love it. So, guys, the Trump isn't going anywhere. It's my pleasure to announce today that things have changed on the landscape for the Canadian election. In fact, it's my belief now the Liberals are cooked. They're done. They have nothing left to try and run against Pierre Poilievre in the next election. We're going to get into it. I got some proof of that, so don't think that we're gaslighting here. Full story ahead. Before we get into that, ladies and gentlemen, I just want to remind you, censorship. If you followed our earlier stories of interference in this election, the Liberals are doing everything in their power to make sure that you can't get the news that you want. They're trying to make sure that they can rig this election. We're going to make it too big to rig. Make sure not only are you subscribing to this channel, and thank you to the huge outpouring of people subscribed to this channel today and the last few days, but make sure you're hitting that subscribe button. We want to grow our large Fringe majority here on the channel as much as possible, but also subscribe to every Canadian YouTuber that you follow, every Canadian podcast that you follow, anybody who spews the truth, because you want to make sure you're getting the information that you need going into this next election, and stay away from the mainstream media. Now, Mark Carney. Why are we saying he's cooked? Well, let's get into it. I'm going to get into an article sent to me by Master of Snatch. Shout out to him. He's so great at keeping me up to speed with what's happening in Canada. The White House says that Canada is now exempt from Trump's baseline reciprocal tariffs and raises China's to 125%. So Donald Trump essentially is authorizing a 90-day pause on some tariffs while vowing to raise levies against China to 125% effective immediately, he said Wednesday. It's not clear yet how those fees will be applied. Donald Trump came in and said, look, I've authorized a 90-day and substantially lowered reciprocal tariff during this period of 10%, also effective immediately, the president wrote. Trump's explosive post sent markets surging, which have been prone to huge swings recently, not just day to day, but hour to hour. Here are the events of the day. So let's take a look at this, because if you've watched the stock market, even China's over the last little while imploding. Everybody's losing stock. And this is a result of the tariffs. This is why tariffs are not just bad for Canada, they're bad for America as well. Trump is recognizing that. But they've also now taken the wind out of Carney's sails. I want to quote what Mark Carney had to say and then tell you why I think it's over for them. Carney says Trump's pause on reciprocal tariffs are a welcome reprieve for the global economy. Mark Carney probably threw whatever was in his hands, his cell phone, whatever he had on deck, at a wall in rage because he's got nothing to fight with now. He's got no carrot on the stick for all those sheeple he was trying to get to the polls. As President Trump and I have agreed, here he is trying to take credit for it again, the U.S. President and Canadian Prime Minister will commence negotiations on a new economic and security relationship immediately following the federal election, Carney wrote on X. So again, Mark Carney's trying to make it sound like he did this. He did not. He had no influence over this whatsoever. It's important that we note that. And it's important that voters try to note that. Because Mark Carney, he tries to take credit for everything. Donald will put him in his place. If he tries to take credit for this, Donald will, no, he didn't. That guy didn't do anything. He didn't do anything with the tariffs. He came in, he doesn't know what he's talking about. He's a loser. I don't like him. These central bankers trying to take over the world. I'm not going to have it. He adds with this move, the U.S. is willing to engage in bilateral negotiation, which means will likely result in a fundamental restructuring of the global trading system. So again, they're going to renegotiate the terms. Despite this reprieve, Canada will continue its efforts to strengthen relationships with other trading partners. I think they should. I think it's only fair that we do. You want to get your products to as many markets as possible. You don't want to just focus on one. Don't throw all your chips in one bucket. Get it out there. Try and expand. The more the merrier. Of course, you see Mark Carney tweeting out the same thing we just quoted. And here's where I think that it's all over for the Liberals, folks. Mark Carney was pulling a Doug Ford. He was using Donald Trump as the carrot on the stick for all those folks in deep, deep South Ontario near the Toronto GTA area with Trump derangement syndrome to say he was going to go fight Donald Trump. If you look at the quotes up here, it says that any new bilateral negotiation will likely result in a fundamental restructuring of the global trading system, meaning it doesn't matter who wins at this point. There's no more negotiating to do with Trump aside from renegotiating the deal. Now, do we want Mark Carney renegotiating that deal, or do we think that Pierre Poilievre is going to be the better negotiator in that deal? I, for one, think that Pierre Poilievre stands a better chance at negotiating over Mark Carney. Now, as we go into the debates next week, I believe they're next Thursday, and stick around here on the channel. I'll be live streaming that debate. You guys don't want to miss that. But where I think things are basically tied up in a bow here is Mark Carney has nothing left. He can try to steal from Pierre Poilievre. He can try to steal his policies. He can try and roll over the conservatives as much as he wants. But now his biggest weapon in his arsenal, Donald Trump, is gone. Mark Carney's a loser. He's not going to use it. He's not going to go up against the United States of America. Canadians are going to vote in the polls. They're going to make Canada great again. I'll stop with the Trump, I promise. It's over for the Liberals. They've got nothing. And the best part about this, the best part moving forward, is Pierre Poilievre can now get off of the one thing that I've said he needs to get off of in his campaigning, and that's the constant attacks against Donald Trump. His voters don't want it. They want diplomacy. They don't want to argue. They don't want to push for more fighting. They don't want a trade war. Nobody wants that. So now Pierre Poilievre can get off of that. He doesn't have to worry about it anymore. He can just roll out his policies. And Mark Carney has nothing left in his arsenal. Trump gives a muddled answers, it says here. Answered by a reporter about when he arrived at the decision to pause tariffs on most countries for 90 days, Trump gave a muddled answers. For a period of time, I would say this morning, over the last few days, I've been thinking about it, the president said. He added fairly early this morning. Earlier in the day, before announcing the pause, Trump on social media urged people to be cool and then said, this is a great time to buy. I couldn't agree more. Anytime these stocks take a plummet, guys, this is the time to jump in. Anybody wanting to invest should have been doing it over the last few days. After members of this administration gave conflicting answers in recent days about whether the tariff hikes were a negotiating ploy, Trump said Wednesday, a lot of these times, it's not a negotiation until it is, which, again, that's a common saying in business. They used to say that in business school when I attended all the time. Commerce Secretary Howard Lutnick, who was in the Oval Office with Trump, said that the European Union did not face further retaliatory tariffs like China because the tariffs that bloc announced Wednesday do not take effect immediately. I'm glad they held back, Trump said. Canada, here we go. Canada is now exempt from baseline tariffs. This is the meat and potatoes of it. In an email to the Liberals' propaganda machine at CTV News Wednesday afternoon, the White House confirmed that Canada is exempt from the 10% baseline reciprocal tariffs it's imposing on dozens of other countries. Several other U.S. tariffs remain in place, however, including 25% on foreign-made automobiles, of which Canadian vehicles are exempt until U.S. administration establishes a process to tax exclusively the non-American vehicle components of Canada-U.S.-Mexico agreement. And again, that can be renegotiated once a new prime minister takes office. So we don't have to worry about it right now. It's moot. It's bupkis. Levies on steel and aluminum are still in place, but again, those took effect on March 12th, and they're also still in place. Mark Carney wants to carbon tax steel and aluminum anyways. So again, that can be renegotiated after the election. You can't tell everybody elbows up and buy Canadian over steel and aluminum. 25% tariffs on all Canadian imports, 10% on Canadian energy, which are related to border security, also apply to non-CUSMA compliant goods. Again, still some tariffs in place, but all countries, here's the thing people don't really take into place. When you look at the dairy sector, look at what Canada charges the United States on dairy tariffs. It's unreal. All countries have one form of tariff or another. What they were doing with this tariff war was trying to urge that Donald Trump was the bad guy in all of this, that essentially our jobs were going to be screwed, our future was going to be screwed, everything was going to be screwed out of place. And Mark Carney apparently thought he was the only person who could negotiate with him. And again, he had the sheeple in place, ready to vote for him. The S&P now soars 9.5% to one of its biggest gains since World War II. This is the Trump effect. This is where I'm saying if anybody bought while things were low, man, did they make some money today. Stock surged to one of its biggest gains since World War II after President Donald Trump paused his tariffs against most other nations. As investors had desperately hoped he would, the S&P 500 soared 9.5% Wednesday. That's a massive gain. If you know anything about stocks, that's a huge gain. The index is still below where it was when Trump announced his sweeping set of tariffs last week, but the Dow Jones Industrial Average flew nearly 3,000 points higher, and the Nasdaq Composite jumped 12.2%. Again, massive gains. The S&P TSX Composite Index was up more than 5% as markets closed, a gain of more than 1,200 points. The Dow was also up almost 8%, while Nasdaq was up more than 12%. So here's Dominic LeBlanc saying that Canada is now seeking he's seeking clarity. International Trade Minister Dominic LeBlanc has reached out to the U.S. Commerce Secretary Howard Lutnick, is seeking clarity on Trump's latest tariff move. The reason for this, they're scrambling. They're trying to figure out how they can pivot this and say, Orange Man bad still, everybody. Everybody fear Donald Trump. He's going to screw you over. Well, not like Mark Carney's going to do, should he win the election. Ernie Tedeschi, former economist, sorry, my dyslexia, at the White House Council of Economic Advisors suggested Trump may have ordered the pause on reciprocal tariffs in part due to the market turmoil seen in the last few weeks and, more importantly, the bond market. So again, this wasn't Mark Carney. Anytime you see Mark Carney trying to take credit for this, anytime, even if you're going to vote liberal, I don't know why you're watching this channel, but if you were going to vote liberal, you should have to know at this point, Mark Carney's full of shit. The only reason he's going to try to take credit for it is to try and save some of those votes that he was hoping to get from those with Trump derangement syndrome. This was about stocks and bonds. It had nothing to do with Canada. Equity market turmoil was one thing, but having international investors begin to question the safety value of U.S. treasuries is a whole different level, he told CTV News, adding that it's the scariest financial data point that we've seen since the tariffs began. Again, it threatened their economy. They got to protect their brand. When asked whether he agrees the Treasury Secretary's claim was the pause is not because of the market, Tedeschi says, I just plain don't believe that. They're also asking, could some companies be exempt? Trump says that he's open to tariff carve-outs for companies and industries that, by no fault of their own, operate in industries that are most reliant on international trade. We're going to take a look at that, he said, without going into details of which companies could expect such treatment. You have to have flexibility. When asked how he could make those determinations, he said, just instinctively. You can almost take a pencil to paper. It's really more important of an instinct, he says. So what he's talking about, and there's the gains on the Dow Jones. Essentially, I'll get out of all that for anybody who doesn't understand that, but essentially what's happened here, and this is one of the things that I keep saying as to why I think Pierre Poilievre would be a fantastic negotiator with Donald Trump versus Mark Carney. People say, well, Mark Carney has the experience. Pierre's been a career politician. He's never dealt with deal makers and businessmen or anything like that. Well, he deals with them all the time when he's talking policy. He deals with them all the time when he's looking for people to prop up the Conservative Party and donate to coffers. Pierre Poilievre has the charisma to sit down and negotiate with Donald Trump, but he was also finance minister for so many years under Stephen Harper. The guy knows everything about money, and he knows a lot about the art of a deal. And that's essentially what Donald Trump is looking for. They're not looking for somebody, Donald's not looking for somebody, sorry, I shouldn't say they. Donald is not looking for somebody who comes in and aggressively wants to attack him, who wants to say elbows up and Canada first. Well, Pierre says Canada first, but you get what I'm saying. They don't want the aggression. They want somebody to come in and it's a business deal. They treat each country like a corporation. They go in, they talk the best deal. They run the numbers. It's all about numbers at the end of the day. Trump wanted one thing and one thing only: fix your border. We don't want any more problems in America. The Canadian government refused to do that. And after this tariff war ensued, you've now got Donald Trump pulling back a little bit because of two reasons, I feel. One is their stocks and bonds. Another one, and it's the same reason that he technically endorsed Mark Carney, is because he doesn't want to work with the liberals. He's smart. He knows who he wants to negotiate with. He called Pierre Poilievre a loser on purpose. I think what we're going to see here now is with the liberals not having this ammunition, to run against those with Trump derangement syndrome, to try and convince them that, hey, Donald's going to screw the world if you don't vote for Mark Carney, those days are over. It's going to be interesting going into next week's debate to see just how the liberals try to flip-flop this and make it sound like Donald Trump is still a threat, even though he's backed off almost completely against Canada. They're done, ladies and gentlemen. We're going to see that blue wave. I got a feeling, again, if you look at Pierre's rallies, if you look at the turnouts, if you watched our incredible live stream before we got cut off, going into the warehouse where Pierre was holding his rally, the turnout, 15,000 people in Alberta, over 6,000 people in Sault Ste. Marie yesterday, and God knows how many are going to be across Ontario this week as Pierre continues his rallies across the country, as Mark Carney brags about having 800 people in a room when half of those people are his staff and volunteers. They're done, ladies and gentlemen. The only way Mark Carney's winning this election at this point is by shenanigans and tomfoolery. Let me know what you think down below. Are you excited to see that this has ended, that the trade war is technically at an end, for now at least, until the election's over? Let me know what you think down below. Who do you think is going to be the better negotiator? Again, if you enjoyed this video and it's your first time here, please hit that subscribe button. It's free. It helps the channel more than you know. Make sure to hit a thumbs up and a comment down below. It helps push the video out beyond YouTube censorship. It tells the algorithm, hey, people are enjoying this. They're interested in it. Again, it's worth more to us than anything, any value of money. Become a part of our large Fringe majority here on the channel. Turn on your bell for notifications. Turn it on for all notifications and join me live, not only this Friday, but every Friday here on the channel for Friday Night Fringe, our live streaming show, where I'll be joined by my beautiful wife, Mrs. Fringe, as we go back and forth with the community on everything that happened this week in politics, everything we know that's coming up in the week ahead, as well as back and forth within the greatest YouTube community on the platform. I look forward to hearing what you guys have to say each and every week, but I most importantly look forward to hearing what you have to say this Friday, starting at 6 p.m. Pacific, 8 p.m. Central, here on the channel. With that said, ladies and gentlemen, I hope you enjoyed this video. I hope you have a great rest of your day. I'll catch you on the next one.